on this episode of Oh No, Another Chess podcast.
I think, okay, so possibly an undervalued skill of a chess coach, or you could say of a teacher generally, is empathy. Okay, so, think of non-chess teaching for a second. If you're in a maths class and you call out an answer or you give your solution to some mathematical problem and the teacher just says, no, complete nonsense, here's the real answer. Is that useful? It might be useful to an extent, but I think what would be more useful is for the maths teacher to try to understand, why did you think that was a good answer?
Hello and welcome to the season finale of Oh No, Another Chess podcast. In today's episode, I speak with my friend and very first chess coach, Fionn O'Donovan. We discuss openings, the concept of chess styles, and how getting input from other players can help level up your game, whether that's a coach or a training partner. Towards the end of the episode, Fionn really helps me to organise my thoughts as well as I start to build out a chess study plan going into 2024 with a fresh start. There will be a hangout, as there always is with these episodes, but it will not be on the usual date. Instead of being a week after the episode's release, it will actually be 2 weeks from the episode's release, just so we can get through this holiday period. So that will be on Friday, the 5th of January at 1900 UTC. Thank you to everyone who has listened to the podcast this season. I hope you guys enjoy this final episode.
You're listening to Oh No, Another Chess podcast.
Fionn, why don't you start by telling us, what do you love most about chess?
So what do I love most about chess? I was talking about this with a friend recently, actually, and I think having that conversation made me realize that, okay, so sometimes during a game of chess, it can be at any stage of the game as well. You know, sometimes you look at the position in front of you and you get that feeling like, this is absolutely crazy. Like you've never seen something like this before. It doesn't have to be a sharp position, whether it doesn't have to be like tactics or drama. It could be like an end game that you've never seen that configuration of the pieces before. You've never seen that kind of material imbalance. And I can't think of any other game that I've ever tried where I've been shocked so many times by the kind of the latest crazy thing to happen, right? That I've just never seen before, never imagined, never planned for. So I think there's something about it. And, you know, I think when I have a classical game of chess and that feeling doesn't appear at any stage, I kind of, afterwards, I feel a little bit sad. You know, it's like, oh no, you know, it would have been nice to get one of those wild things coming up. But then, of course, when I do get something that's so new to me and I'd never imagined before, it's a wonderful feeling. And it's kind of like, yeah, this is why I play chess. You know, I feel like that's kind of, in a way, that's the pure test of your chess skill as well. When you have to confront something really unknown, at least really unknown to you, and you've got to try to outthink your opponent in that crazy situation. So to me, that's kind of the beauty of chess and the challenge of chess, is dealing with those unpredictable moments.
Yeah, it really is a game of infinite possibilities, and kind of reminds me of a quote I heard today where someone mentioned that they were watching Bent Larson and someone else in the Skittles room, and they were looking at a position. They were like both saying, I just have absolutely no idea what's going on here. And, you know, they as an amateur player were feeling slightly better about themselves from that. But it's true that, you know, we can reach these crazy positions sometimes where it's just wild what's going on.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It happens to absolutely everyone. That's also part of the beauty of the game, right? Because I'm sure there are some games out there where at some point you kind of have seen everything. You know, when you're learning the game, things will be new. But then in chess, it's like, it seems inexhaustible, how many like weird and wonderful things can come up, and no one can quite master them all or plan for them all.
Yeah, I think that's why chess variants confuse me. I'm like, why do you need a variant? Just play the game. It's hard enough to get your head around it all anyway. I think for people who don't know you, I would like to introduce how I met you a little bit. So you were on Chess Journeys, and I think I reached out to you maybe. But anyways, we somehow connected, and you started the Chess Punks Tactics group, which, if anyone has not turned up to one of Finn's tactics groups, they should. It's a really cool community of people just solving puzzles and talking about chess. But yeah, I met Finn through that, and then basically reached out to him and said, do you know any good chess coaches? And he said, well, I do a bit of chess coaching as part of my work as a tutor. And at that time, me and my wife and my family were going through a bit of a tough time, having just lost our all of our worldly possessions in a flood. And a lot of people in my life helped me out at that time. But Finn, I remember your ridiculously generous offer of a block of coaching for. Well, you definitely weren't making a profit on it anyway. So I really, really appreciated that, because I knew it was coming from that place. So. Yeah, that was amazing. And, you were my first ever, chess coach, and actually to this date, still only chess coach that I've had. Yeah, that was great. And I think I I had a big rating jump after we worked together as well. You pointed out some pretty obvious flaws in my games too. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that to people about you, how kind you are. Why don't we take it back and talk a little bit about the tactics group where we first met?
I think, I do actually remember the first time that you came along to one of the meetings, which I think was probably the second or third meeting that we did, perhaps. I remember that you joined from the farm in Spain, and I could see it was like pitch black outside. You're outdoors, and I was thinking, and you mentioned that you'd been working on the farm all day, and I was thinking, wow, like, seriously dedicated to solving some puzzles, joining from that location. So yeah, that was really cool. And I just remember, we got on really well from the word go. So yeah, it was just really fun doing the lessons with each other as well. I think basically the reason I formed the tactics group in the first place was really because of a realization I made about my own chess learning process, which is I'm the kind of person who's not strongly motivated to work hard on chess when I'm sitting on my own in a room. I mean, I love chess, and I sort of make myself do that kind of study sometimes, and sometimes I even enjoy it. But generally speaking, I'd rather be speaking to someone about chess, or playing someone at chess, or having a social experience while I'm learning, right? And I think, maybe that's not for everyone, but I do think there are many benefits of that approach. I think it's much easier to challenge one's own way of thinking when you have friends or co-workers who are going to criticize you, and they're going to criticize you from angles you won't consider so naturally, or maybe just will never have considered before. So I was really thinking, it would be great to just have a kind of learning community to be part of. And I think that will make me motivated to do this kind of tactical training. And so, I tried it out, and I'm really pleased with how it's gone so far. I mean, it's in some ways it's kind of bold thing to do, right? Because I mostly just invite random people from the internet to join in the training, right? And I at times I have been worried, what if some people come who are very disruptive, or don't follow the rules of how the group works, or just people don't get along with each other. But actually, that has never really been a problem somehow. So I don't know if it's luck or judgment, but people seem to get on very well. We tend to follow the same patterns, and we tend to all enjoy the process as well. So yeah, so far, thankfully, it's been a really good, positive experience. And I've probably at this point, I'd say I've probably done around 100 hours or so of tactics training as part of the group. And that's a lot more than I would have done on my own, right? So it's definitely working from that point of view.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know about you, but I actually think that I remember the puzzles because there's a sort of a real experience that goes with them, right? Sometimes you remember the discussion, or you remember specifically who it was in the group that came up with this insane idea that helped us to find the solution. Because, spoiler alert, if you're going to go at the tactics group, we don't always get it right. And there's often a long discussion afterwards before we sort of come to a consensus about what might be the right idea.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So it's the same for me. Like for me, it's just so interesting to see different members, different ways of thinking about positions. So when someone comes up with an idea that I would never have come up with, that's something that makes the biggest impact for me, really. Sometimes it's not even about the solution. Sometimes it's more about an idea that someone has, or a way of thinking that someone has. And sometimes that's the thing that sticks in my mind, as opposed to the actual solution to the puzzle that we're discussing. So yeah, it's, and to me, that's kind of the benefit of the social format of the training, right? So it's similarly to how when you do a post-mortem with your opponent after a classical game, you suddenly, you realize, oh God, they were calculating all these lines that I never even thought about. And so it starts planting that seed in your mind of, how could I get my brain to start thinking about those kind of things,
Absolutely. Yeah, so hundreds of hours of calculation you've got in this year. What else have you been doing this year? What's an update on the state of your chess over 2023?
Well, I have to say that 2023 has not been a tremendously successful year for my chess from the point of view of rating, at least, because in the prior couple of years, I actually saw quite a big improvement. So my ECF rating, English Chess Federation rating, was kind of steadily climbing. I went from roughly 1500 to almost 1700 in over sort of 2021 to 2022. And then this year has been a bit more difficult for various reasons. I mean, partly I just haven't racked up as many games as I wanted. And also when I have played tournaments, they've kind of been okay, no disasters, but no complete disasters, but also I'm seemingly finding it harder to get the wins recently. So yeah, in terms of my aims of meeting my goals, it's been a bit of a tricky year, and my rating's sort of kind of stagnating around 1650, that kind of area. I also feel that, and this is perhaps partly caused by my training being a bit haphazard and chaotic and messy. And in fact, I might be being a bit over generous to myself by calling it a training routine. I mean, I've got the tactics group, which I'm doing often, but my personal kind of training and study is not very disciplined at all. Yeah, perhaps that's something we can talk a bit more about later on. But yeah, I think I've been kind of degenerating into just playing a lot of blitz games and not actually doing that much focused training. So in that sense, I feel like, yeah, and of course I do understand that it's the higher my rating gets, the harder it's going to be to win games, and the harder it's going to be to gain rating points. So, I'm very much aware that it is going to be tricky to kind of push forwards from this point. And yeah, I feel I haven't quite found the right approach or the right formula to do that yet. So it's been a bit of a difficult year, and hopefully 2024, the new year, it's going to, it's going to allow me to kind of rethink and restructure and hopefully push on a bit further.
What do you think was different about this year then? We can talk about your study plan now. So what was there a reason that you weren't really getting into a rhythm or anything this year? Was it because you were playing the positionally inaccurate E4 by accident this year?
Yeah, it's a bit hard to say. I think it's partly. I suppose it may partly just be to do with the fact that it's going to be hard to sustain the kind of rating increase that I had in the previous years. And I did kind of feel like while I was having that good period of getting a lot of wins, and so during that 2021 to 2022 period, I really wasn't losing a lot of games. And I do think that there was definitely an element of luck there, because I was sometimes playing higher rated opponents and sometimes managing to kind of somehow kind of, I guess, kind of cheat my way into draws and things like that, and just getting a slice of luck. So I kind of felt like things were going unusually well, and that some kind of difficulties were probably going to be around the corner, just on balance of probabilities. But yeah, I think probably I could pinpoint a couple of things so that might have kind of interfered with the quality of my play and training a little bit. I think first of all, there were just many weeks this year where I just couldn't make it to my club to play a classical game, and I think it's just kind of boring life stuff getting in the way, like moving house, family responsibilities, sometimes being unwell. And yeah, I think when you play a classical game, serious classical game every single week, it does a lot of good. It does you a lot of good. So I think to some extent I was just a little bit out of practice and sometimes felt a bit rusty when I did play rated games. I think let me think. So yeah, I mean, I remember having games where I was in positions that weren't even too complicated or difficult, but I was taking a lot of time because I was slightly rusty. And then, you're sort of, you're under a little bit of time pressure. You're kind of okay. The position's not too difficult. You get a bit lower on time and suddenly things start getting complicated and you realize, why did I waste 20 minutes in a really boring position when I really could use that time right now? So it's a little bit of just sharpness, I guess. And then also so around about, I guess a year and a half ago, maybe coming up to 2 years ago, I bought the training planner that Noel Studer put out around that time. And it's just a simple little book that is just a kind of prompt to help you structure your training. And actually, I stuck to that. I stuck to that for quite a period of a few months. And I was using mostly solving tactics and then kind of logging it down in the book and reviewing how my performance was and so forth. And I remember it was just a month or two after I'd started that I got my best tournament result ever. Right, so I got second place in the under 1750 tournament. And yeah, at that time I could honestly say that I had a training program that was actually real. I was actually kind of sticking to it. And I was doing useful stuff pretty much daily. And somehow I lost that routine, which was a bit of a shame, really. And I think I remember I started that training routine in the Christmas holidays, funnily enough, because I had lots of time off work, and it was the new year coming up, so I was like, okay, let's establish something new, and it lasted a while, and then faded away. So maybe this Christmas period is the one where I can sort of get back into that and have a properly structured training system that might bear some fruit.
Yeah, and we'll definitely talk about like what both yourself and myself are maybe thinking about going forward. One of the things I think I was most captured by that you tried this year was, and correct me if it wasn't this year, I'm lost all concepts of time this year, I think, But I'm pretty sure you started playing E4. That was my joke about it being positionally inaccurate, right? You used to play D4. In fact, I think I switched to D4 just when you started doing some coaching sessions with me.
Right, yeah.
You decided you wanted to play more of these open positions, these more of these tactical positions, because you felt like that wasn't your strength, right? That was your weakness. So you're like, I'll play gambits for an entire year and I'll fix that hole in my game, right? So was that this year? And also, like, hats off to you. That's an incredible thing to do. I think it's a really brave thing to do. I did something similar in thinking I'm going to play really boring openings, copy Keith Arkell's opening repertoire, and I'm going to do that whilst I'm studying endgames. And I know that I should probably do something like what you've just done, because that's also now like a weaker part of my game. But I'm too scared because I'm good at this now, Finn. How do I stop?
Right, yeah. So I just checked my kind of ECF database page to check, just to refresh my memory of which tournaments I played E4 in and which tournaments I played D4 in. So basically 2022, I think I switched to E4 sort of mid 2022 and then changed back to D4 mid 2023. Roughly speaking. So it was about a year of playing E4, and it was like basically two tournaments that I played E4 in, along with regular club games and so forth. I mean, I think I have mixed feelings about it, because on the plus side, so actually part of the reason why I decided to play some gambits and try to play some sharp positions was I started forming the view that a lot of players around my sort of level, sort of intermediate level, low intermediate level, maybe you could call it, don't really understand the value of initiative, especially in situations where one side is a pawn up. So, just based on, content that I was seeing from grandmasters on YouTube, things like that, and my coach, I was thinking, well, I really get this. I get this idea of, you sacrifice a pawn and you have really active pieces, and you have maybe attacking ideas or positional compensation or whatever it is. I really get this, and therefore shouldn't I try to deliberately create situations on the board where I can use my strong understanding of these dynamics to then, get an advantage or get positions that I like or understand well, as opposed to dry equal positions, which I sometimes don't understand very well, right? Because, what do you do in dry equal positions? Sometimes it's hard to come up with ideas. When you've got super active pieces in the Smith-Morrow Gambit, but you're a pawn down, you kind of know what you have to do, right? You have to create some drama before you just reach some terrible endgame one pawn down. So that was kind of the idea, but unfortunately, the reality turned out to be that more of the time, more often than not, I was actually reaching positions where I was a pawn down, and the compensation, if it existed, was very difficult to understand. So while there are many positions where I do understand where the compensation is and so forth, and sometimes I was able to use the compensation and so forth, but I was finding that very often I would sort of end up thinking at some point in the game, why did I do this? Why did I give away that pawn? Because I don't feel I'm particularly worse than this player, but it's just that they now have a pawn. And that became a bit annoying, like just psychologically, right? I almost felt that I was going into these games where I was going to play gambit lines at an unnecessary disadvantage, or just maybe being a bit on edge, right? Because here's the other thing, right? So I think, there were definitely opening lines where I felt totally fine. Like, I think, for example, Smith-Morrow Gambit as whites, I didn't lose many games. I don't think I lost any classical games, rated classical games in the Smith-Morra. However, obviously you've got to prepare a whole repertoire with E4. And, if I had, for the sake of argument, 7 or 8 gambits in the locker, well, some of them I was very well prepared in, but some of them I was not very well prepared in because, finite time to prepare and so forth. So, even just before the game actually started, sometimes I had anxiety like, oh God, what if they play the French and I'm playing the Milner Barry Gambit, but there are these lines that I don't really understand and I'm going to be a pawn down and my position's going to be terrible after 10 moves. And it's just not the kind of, well, maybe some people can hack it, but I started to feel too on edge, right? Because I knew that these openings were risky and some of them I wasn't that confident in. Now the thing is, the one reason I have mixed feelings about it is I've now gone back to D4, obviously, which is what I always played before, really, or I'd been playing for a long time. But the thing is, now I'm rusty in D4 openings. So now, and I was getting used to my crazy gambits. So for example, I was very nervous about playing the Milner Barry Gambit against the French for a while. But actually, towards the end of the period where I was playing E4, I really grew to like it and actually had some really good games in it. I had some very painful defeats in it earlier on. So I'm really unsure as to whether I made the right decision to kind of return to D4 where I felt more comfortable, because I did build up quite a bit of knowledge and experience and comfort playing the sharper positions. And it feels a little bit like I've kind of lost the benefit that I gained from doing that by switching back. On the other hand, I do think that I'm more comfortable in sharp positions now. I think in particular in sharp opening positions, because to be honest, playing gambits in the opening doesn't necessarily translate to seeing sharp positions in the middle game or end game. It just depends what happens, right? But certainly for sharp openings, I feel pretty comfortable, at least more comfortable than I did before I tried out the gambits.
Great, yeah. But you don't feel like it is sort of translated into a tangible thing that you can take into your new game, or that there's not more understanding there of the value of time or how to create imbalances when you're behind?
To an extent, maybe. I mean, I think probably the biggest concrete skill I could say that I picked up from it was, I think I'm now a lot better at defending when being a pawn down. Because defending bad positions when being a pawn down, because it never used to happen, right? Or it seldom used to happen. Whereas after I started playing gambits, that actually happened quite a bit. I think the way I would describe it is I think I already had a fairly decent understanding of initiative and attacking and things for my level, and that was partly why I wanted to play the gambit openings in the first place. Partly to test myself in that regard, but partly because I was kind of hoping, well, maybe this will suit me a bit more. Now, I do think the experience has made me a bit better at looking for tactics and trying to sustain the initiative and so forth. It's a little hard to be sure about that, right? Because it's like, who's going to quantify that for you? It's really like a kind of subjective feeling to an extent of like how strong you feel you are with these things. So yeah, I mean, I would recommend it to people who, well, first of all, just might find it to be a fun and interesting experience to just change the kind of opening positions you're getting, and to people who want to test their tactical abilities and ability for the initiative. I think, I was just, perhaps one reason why I felt that I was often, running out of compensation is probably because my calculation's actually not good enough. Because I think sometimes, especially when I was reviewing the games, I realized, oh, there is still compensation there. I thought that there was none, because actually the reason there's compensation is because of some very specific tactical thing going on in the position, and I just didn't look at that, because I just didn't see well enough, or didn't think to kind of calculate it more thoroughly. So yeah, maybe in a way it was a kind of humbling thing of maybe I overestimated my my understanding of these things a little bit, and actually it was I think it was maybe starting to have a bit of a negative effect on the results as well. So, I mean, the results weren't terrible at all, but they were just okay, So yeah, it was kind of overall had lots of benefits to it, to trying it, but also feels like it had quite a lot of costs as well. I mean, for instance, I wonder if I just stuck with D4 the whole time, maybe I'd be really, really good at a lot of D4 openings now, better than I actually am at this moment.
Yeah, I think that's one of the weird things about chess, right? Is you can study one element of the game and you can feel yourself like, I understand this better, I am a better chess player, but the number doesn't go up because there's just so many other factors to being a chess player. And it's chess is quite unique in that, aspect before. I mean, if someone's hobby was, I don't know, knitting, well, prepare yourself for the worst example of all time. And they said to you, I've been looking at these knitting things on YouTube. This is getting worse. And and they said, and now I feel like I'm much better at knitting than I was last month. You just go, yeah, okay. You just believe them, right? And they believe themselves. Whereas, as you speak to someone in chess, they're like, oh yeah, I've been studying, these middle game structures for the last few months, but I haven't gotten any better. Well, that's not true, right? If you feel like you're more comfortable in those positions and you feel like you're better, just because you're not higher rated yet, doesn't mean you didn't learn anything, right? It doesn't mean you didn't get better. It's just that there's too many other factors to yet have the entirety of you as a chess player improve numerically.
I think that's definitely true to a degree, and we definitely should be a bit suspicious of thinking of the number as a fully objective measure of how good you are. I mean, there's definitely variance, and there's definitely sometimes rating inflation or deflation or so forth. But by the way, one curious thing about my opening shift is so I was also playing the Gambit openings in Blitz online and everything, and my Blitz rating just did not change at all when I switched. And actually, I was a bit surprised by that, because some people told me, or just said things like, well, if you try out very different kind of openings or different positions, you can probably expect a bit of a hit to your rating for a while. And I think, I didn't notice that at all, which was a bit surprising, but I think probably just also attests to the fact that probably the main determinants of how successful we are in chess are about middle game and end game play. I think, of course, opening disasters sometimes happen, but they're not super common once you get to a certain level, and you can kind of eliminate those by preparing carefully enough, or pretty much eliminate them. So yeah, I think ultimately, maybe part of what I learned is that the opening you choose is not going to make an enormous difference to your level either.
Sure. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think, that's what everyone seems to say. It's certainly my experience as well. I'm just happy to have a position I understand out of the opening. And but it's rare that I'll win or lose a game in the first few moves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
All right. So you mentioned your rating a few times there. You're sort of intermediate club level player. And actually, I think you were around probably the same rating I am now when you first started coaching me So my question is then, what value do you think a non-titled chess coach can bring to a student? Like, why would you pick a non-titled chess coach when there are hundreds of masters out there to pick from?
Okay, so possibly an undervalued skill of a chess coach, or you could say of a teacher generally, is empathy. Okay, so I mean, think of non-chess teaching for a second. If you're in a maths class and you call out an answer, or you give your solution to some mathematical problem, and the teacher just says, "No, complete nonsense. Here's the real answer." Is that useful? I mean, it might be useful to an extent, but I think what would be more useful is for the maths teacher to try to understand, why did you think that was a good answer? Because if they can understand why you thought it was a good answer, they can actually tell you things that will help you solve future mathematical problems of that nature in a better way. Whereas just hearing the right answer to that one specific problem just doesn't do that, right? It just tells you something very local and specific. So to me, chess coaches really need to be able to understand the mentality of their students, and that means to understand why they played certain moves, why they have a certain style, why they are prone to making certain kinds of mistakes. And I'm sure many title players have the ability to do that. There's no doubt that many of them do. But actually, in some cases, the gap between where the title player is and where the student is might be so enormous that it's actually really hard for the title player to understand what is going on in the head of the lower rated student. That can be a real problem, right? Because it can lead to the coach kind of focusing on the wrong things or misdiagnosing what's really the problem. I mean, I'll tell you a kind of a theory that I came up with, just based on a very kind of individual personal experience I've had, right? So I'm a huge fan of Daniel Naroditsky videos, right? I think he's fantastic. We're obviously super talented coach, very good coach, very good at understanding, other people's thought processes, listening to them, so on and so forth. So, on paper, you would think Naroditsky would be one of the title coaches who could coach anyone, and I'm sure he can coach someone of any level and have really good success. However, I noticed after I watch his speedrun videos, if I go and play a game right after, I play like trash. And I think I know why. It's because for Naroditsky, things come super easy, right? He can see tactics so easily. He can identify bad moves super easily. And after I've just watched Naroditsky for an hour, I try and copy how he thinks. So I see my opponent makes a move and I'm like, ha ha ha. Well, Naroditsky would say that that's a positional mistake because of blah, blah, blah. And I play what I think is the refutation. And then I realize they were setting up a tactic and I just get checkmated. Because whereas for Naroditsky, he would have seen that checkmate coming a mile off, but my brain is nowhere near his. And so if I try and imitate his thought process, it just doesn't work. I mean, basically, my brain during a chess game comes up with a lot of really bad ideas. Like it comes up with a lot of moves which are just, Naroditsky would never have considered those moves because it would just be so obvious to him that no, just don't. But to me, I'm like, oh, that looks good. And then it takes me time. It takes like minutes to be like, oh, is this actually good? Is it not? I need to try and figure this out, right? So to me, what's a really difficult question to answer, like for someone stronger, might be, just not a question. And that I think illustrates why there's a lot to be said for having a coach who's sort of fairly close to your level, right? Because the kind of problems that you find tricky will be at least somewhat similar, right? And that's actually
maybe even ones that your coach might have solved themselves or in their own game not that long ago.
Exactly. And of course we want our coach to give a more informed, perspective than our own. But we also need someone who can speak to us in a language we understand, and can also, at the same time, that they're not, in a way, like, now, of course, I'm sure that people like Naroditsky and title players are not going to be thinking, what an idiot this person is, because they don't see these tactics. But it's almost like that they're still going to be thinking, like, why is this person like not seeing this? It's second nature to me. So I think having a coach who's kind of like, I get it, I understand why it's wrong, and I can tell you why it's wrong, but I get it. That's quite a nice thing to have. It's a useful thing to have as well.
Yeah, I think that's a good answer. It's a good perspective for sure. Okay, question from Patreon supporter of the show, Dawn Lawson. Thanks for the question, Dawn. Dawn has a fantastic blog, by the way, which I'll link to in the show notes. So she asks, based on coaching me and our first coaching experiences together, are you surprised that I ended up as a chess coach and personality? I'm not entirely sure that I'd call myself a chess personality, Dawn, but thanks. What do you think, Finn?
So, I'm not surprised that you became a chess coach, and that's because I think when we first started meeting, it was very clear that you were really driven to improve, and so I think it's kind of natural for people who are really driven to understand chess to want to kind of share that understanding. So that made a lot of sense, and that wasn't surprising. I guess at that time I didn't know that that you kind of had such great ability to kind of write as well, right? So, and that was really kind of how you kind of launched yourself onto the scene through your blog and everything. So, obviously I had no reason to think that you were not a writer or not a good writer, but I just wasn't aware of it. So, that was, I guess, I didn't particularly predict that part.
All right. Well, thanks for the question, Dawn. All right. So let's talk about our next year then, Finn. So we sort of talked a little bit about how this past year has gone. I can certainly empathize and relate to the year you've had with, being a bit stop-start. I definitely started the year with, the consistent training plan that I had. And now, and I sort of lost it basically throughout the year, moving countries and everything. But I really want to use the new year to launch back into it again, basically. And I thought it would be great to have you, my first coach here, to help to devise a plan going forward. So the issue is maintaining actually doing it, right? I've got a very clear idea, and I give this to my students as well, of like what you need to be doing to actually improve. And so maybe I can just outline that very briefly first and then tell you why I don't want to do it. So, basically I get everyone doing really easy tactics like pattern recognition stuff every single day. And I get them doing that with a special, method that Alex Crompton outlined, partly in his blog. And again, I'll link to that in the show notes, but we sort of tweaked that together, not me and Alex. He sort of tweaked that and shared it with me, and he keeps me updated on how he optimizes that process, and I pass that along to my students. And so this easy pattern recognition, like easy 1-2 move tactics, puzzle rush type stuff, right? The first puzzle rush puzzles, and then also every day doing a few really difficult puzzles, like the ones that we go over in the tactics group, the Chess Punks tactics group, right? Where you're sitting down, you're spending 5 to 10 minutes really moving the pieces around in your head, pawn end game, puzzles, I think, are great for this because the solutions tend to be quite long a lot of the time. And so it can really stretch your visualization. And then playing and analyzing, basically. That's the third thing. And those are the three skill-based things. Then, of course, there is knowledge, but I've always been sort of content to follow, or I am more recently, I would say, more content to just follow my enthusiasm now. Because I realize if I sit down and say, right, the next 6 weeks is all going to be about, the advanced Caro-Kann or, same color bishop endgames, then I feel boxed in and I don't necessarily learn as well as I would if I just followed my enthusiasm. So the knowledge I let go where it goes. But that's like the basis of the skill-based study plan. Problem is I really struggle to maintain that daily practice. And I know if I don't do the daily practice, I'm just gonna stop and do nothing. Yeah. So basically what I want to do this year, and I'm curious as to whether or not you think I can improve doing this, is to just play. Because I'm really loving playing over the board. There are 3 chess clubs here. I could play, and I won't, I don't intend to do this, but I worked out I could probably play 150 over the board games this year, right? If I went every week to this club, to every club in the city. I mean, that's how many games I could hammer in. Now, I'm not going to do that. I can't. I think my wife would leave me if I spent 12 hours a week, 3 evenings a week playing chess, particularly since one of them's on a Friday night. But yeah, what do you think? Just playing and analysing, can it be done?
I think it can be done, and I think it's. I don't think it would be the worst thing for your chess, especially because I know that you in particular have done quite a lot of pretty heavy duty studying of at least certain parts of the game, right? So quite heavy duty study of endgames, for instance. So normally my concern might be, do you have enough of a solid background in, important strategic stuff that you kind of need to know, and so. But actually, I feel like you've probably got that, and so you've looked at a broader range of, let's say, important ideas than a lot of players at your rating level have looked at. So in that sense, maybe for you, just doing a lot of playing and analysing sounds good. I guess my question would be, what's the analysing going to look like? Is that going to be analysing solo, or is it going to be analysing with your opponents, with peers? What will that be like?
It's a good question. Yeah, I think mostly it will be analysing with my opponents. I think you pretty much always get a post-mortem. At least I've never not had one at least offered after the games. And yeah, and then also I do my own analysis after that. So the process basically play the game, go over it with the opponent, go home. And then the way I analyze is I try to write down my thoughts in my first pass as if I could almost print out my internal dialogue onto the page. That's what I do in the first pass. So I'm not bothered about the chess. I'm just like printing out my thoughts as I thought them and then writing down any variations that I calculated during the game. And then I'll start to go through it again and like start thinking a bit more critically about, okay, what could have I done differently? So there's basically 3 passes through it, I think. And maybe I'll do a final pass with the engine as well, if I, can't help myself at the end of it all.
Well, I'm already impressed if you have the discipline to do 2 run-throughs with no engine. Like that's better than what I usually manage. Yeah, but I suppose one thing I would say then is, I mean, the trouble with post-mortems is that they tend to be rather short, right? Because often games in Europe are finishing quite late in the evening, and sometimes it's difficult to, I don't know about your clubs, but certainly for me it's difficult to find space where you can actually talk without disturbing other players and so forth. So like in my classical games, I don't tend to get good quality post-mortems there and then. One thing that I've started trying to do is actually seeing if my opponent's willing to swap email addresses or phone numbers after the game. Sometimes I invite them to the tactics group, by the way. You're more than welcome to invite them to the tactics group that I run as well, just as a way of kind of saying, well, it's actually quite a few of the current members are people that I played OTV.
Okay,
so,
nice.
Yeah, and it's a nice way to keep in touch. And of course, they're often around your sort of level. So they're people, all of your opponents are people who could potentially become training partners. Now, of course, not all of them will have the time or the inclination, especially if they're stronger players. They might they might just not be interested in playing against or training with mere mortals. But I have found that quite a few people, at the very least, will kind of, they'll want a proper post-mortem, and then you can actually just do that on Zoom a bit later on. And I would say that if playing and analysing is going to be your main approach, I think it would be healthy to get as many different people involved in your analysis process as possible. Which means opponents. It also maybe means, if you've got some friends who are training partners, show them your games and they can show you their games, and analyze them together. And I think that will. Because that's also part of the value that you would get from a book, right? You get another chess thinker's perspective coming in, and I think that if your only source of kind of other chess brains coming in was in the kind of rushed post-mortem that you do when you're tired after a long game, that might not be the best.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I have to say the postmortems that I get are generally pretty good. Like they can last a while. Actually, I think people are quite dedicated to sit down. I don't know if it's just the culture here in the Netherlands or what. Even though we're finishing quite late, people are normally happy to sit down, have a drink with you, and go over it properly. At least that's been my experience so far. Not always. It depends. Sometimes on the result, it can be a sore one for either of you and you just want to get out of there also. But yeah, and I think the reason I want to do this, I should probably say, is because I feel like the mistakes I'm making are coming from errors in my thought process and in my decision-making model. Actually, that's not even true. I like my decision-making model. Like, I feel like it's really good and it's solid and it's good for me. My problem is I'm not following it, right? Because I'll slip up, right? I have a very thorough, blunder check and I wrote a whole article about this called What the Fork is a Blunder Check, where I basically say, what does the move do? What's the move no longer do as soon as my opponent makes their move? And that means literally listing the things that a piece attacks when it moves and what lines and diagonals are opened up, just investigating the move, basically grounding yourself in it. And I sort of trigger myself to remember to do that by every time I touch my pen, I'll pick my hand up again and be like, whoa, okay, I didn't ask the questions yet. So I won't even write my opponent's move down until I've done that. And I'm really consistent with that.
That's good.
And then when it's my move, when I'm reaching forward to touch the piece, that's also supposed to be like this physical trigger for me to not, to go, okay, right, now I'm going to answer the questions for my move, right? What am I undefending with this? Now, so there's nothing that's great. That's a great model to have. The problem is I've noticed let's use my last over the board game. I lost my last over the board game in an extremely painful way. Playing a game and I was, thinking to myself, this is just a positional masterpiece, this. I was playing it and okay, my opponent was maybe allowing it somewhat, but either way, I was feeling very good about my position. And I hung a mate in 3. I knew I can't undefend this square, right? I was very much aware of that for several moves. And then, I tried to ask this why, right? Why did I not do the check? Because if I just simply said, before I just moved the knight off of F3 and undefended H2, basically, and it was fatal. And so if I just said, what am I no longer doing when I move this? I'd immediately listed H2 and be like, oh yeah, I can't touch that knight. But I didn't do it. And the reason I didn't do it was because I'd gotten distracted, right? So there was like a little commotion on another board. And so I looked up and I got distracted. And when I came back to look at the board, I never took the time to re-engage myself in my own thought process. And also, I was a little bit low on time. And when I say a little bit low on time, I still had like 20 minutes. But in a 90-minute game, I was significantly behind on the clock as well, I'd say. It's like about 20 minutes down on the clock as well. So I felt rushed. And so I was like, okay, and I just need to move now. And I moved. So it was like a combination of getting distracted but the distraction wasn't the problem. It was then not getting back into it and feeling rushed by the time. And so none of that is in a chess book, right? No amount of tactics will help me spot that. It's not that I missed the mate in 3. I was aware of his existence. I just somehow had a complete meltdown, basically. And so it's about understanding myself better, I feel like, and refining my thought process until it's less holy. It's less, it's less flawed.
I see. Yeah, that makes sense. So I do think, for you in particular, I do think that, to me, it feels like, that you've got lots of just skill and knowledge kind of there. And it does take a certain amount of over the board experience before it's kind of able to come out and really show itself. So yeah, absolutely. I think, I feel pretty confident that as you rack up more experience, because you haven't played that many OTB rated games, right?
I think about 20 at this point.
So like it's really early days. Yeah. So I definitely 100% think that maximizing the number of OTB classical games you get will do a lot of good for you. But do I understand correctly then? So are you? Does this mean that you're kind of what you're going to play maybe 1, maybe 2 classical OTB games per week, and you're going to analyze them? So
I want to aim for 2 a week. Yeah,
2 a week. But is there going to be any other staple part of your training routine that you're going to aim to keep during this New Year period?
Well, I was hoping you could just say, no, that sounds fine. You don't have to do anything else. And I could get away with it. But no, I'm aware I'm going to have to keep up a diet of tactics, I think, because the calculation I'll get at the board, right? That's fine. I feel like I could probably leave the calculation if I really feel like I don't have the energy for it. But I feel like the pattern recognition, there's just no way around it. Like, I feel like that's kind of like going to the gym every day. You need to stay fit, or, you're just not going to be able to turn up at the race. So, yeah, I feel like maybe that's unavoidable. What do you think?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think, if you were playing and analyzing, but doing 0 tactics puzzles, like per week, I would be a bit worried that you might suffer a bit from that. Because also bear in mind, it's not just whether you see the tactic, it's also how fast you see it during the game. Because if you're playing against someone very equal to you in strength, then like having an extra 5 minutes on the clock in the end game might be the difference between being able to beat them and not. And so, I mean, I feel this very strongly because I think I'm quite slow at figuring out tactics. And so, I know that part of the reason I'm taking a lot of time during games is because like things take me a little longer to figure out, and sometimes I pay the price for that. So yeah, I do think you should continue doing the easy tactics. I guess I was also just thinking, to me, like at least, so I think if I tried to have the approach of just playing and analyzing, and also maybe just doing tactics, I'm not sure I'd be able to keep doing that, because there's a certain amount of time in my week where I've got time at home available to do chess stuff, right? And I don't think I would only want to populate that time with those things, just because it's too fun to like doing the other stuff is going to be fun, and therefore I'm going to be attracted to doing it. Now, of course, you can respond to that by just saying, I've got the discipline to stick to this, and maybe it's the best plan, so you'll do it. But I don't know. I mean, do you maybe want to allow yourself to branch out just a little more? Maybe you could, for instance, pick one other activity, that chest-based training activity that you could do, just in case things get old otherwise.
Sure. Well, I mean, I will also say that I'm also spending at least like 3 hours a day analyzing other people's games, and then a further 3 hours teaching chess. So like the basics I'm constantly reinforcing for myself, if that makes sense, through teaching, which I actually do think is valuable. I've heard a lot of people say that they think that coaching makes their own chess worse. I don't think that. Honestly, I actually think it helps me to like be constantly every day saying out loud, just some of the things that just reinforcing basic principles, basically, or, teaching stuff I already know, so that I continue to know it. If that makes sense. So I'm also getting that. So I think that maybe counts as part of my training. And I'm certainly staring at a chessboard for hours and hours a day, on top of my own chess.
Yes. Yeah. Let me ask one question then. So, in 2024, what do you think you'll be doing to address your biggest chess weaknesses?
Well, hopefully that will be the analysis. I think that's what will be addressing my weaknesses, right? It'll be understanding, like, for example, I just feel like I have a lot of thought process errors. Another thing I've been struggling with, and this is partly, I think, a switch to the time control. But again, it's part, that's something I need to work on, which is when I see a win, a tactical win, like, for example, at a game that I should have finished the game with this tactic, right? I was like, I'm winning a piece. I'm sure I'm winning a piece. I calculated it all. And this is fairly early in the game. We both had over an hour on our clocks. And I was just winning a minor piece. And I spent 5 minutes double checking my calculation. And then I missed the key intermediate move and the tactic didn't work anymore. And it's like, well, if, I need to realize if you see a win, that's essentially going to end the game, right? In a classical game, up a piece, I trust myself to probably finish that off against an equal opponent. Why am I only spending 5 minutes? I should have spent 15 minutes just to be absolutely certain, like when I see that win, this early in the game, like I can play the rest of the game as fast as I like after that. So that's like the kind of thing I need to understand through analysis. I need to understand myself better, I feel like, in order to improve. So that's where I feel like I'm going to shore up my weaknesses, is through this like self-analysis, through this introspection, which is, mostly what I believe drives chess improvement, right? That's my coaching philosophy as well, is trying to get students to understand themselves, or at least being like another voice, because I think, and maybe you're right that I do need to bring more people in, because one of the things I think I can do as a coach is sort of say, well, sometimes it's hard to see your own flaws, right? We all know that from life as well as in chess. As much as I might try and look at them myself, maybe it's nice to have someone sitting next to me to say, well, yeah.
That's what I was going to say, because at least this is what I find for myself. I don't know to what extent it's true for others. But when I analyze my own games, my analysis usually suffers from similar flaws to my play. Now, of course, my analysis is a bit better than my play because I've got more time to think about it and so forth. But and sometimes if I'm analyzing using the engine, then my analysis suffers from laziness. So, if I'm analyzing completely independently, then it's, there are things that I'm missing that I should be thinking about. If I'm analyzing with the engine, then it's feeding me the answers without me having to work out what I should have been thinking about. So and here's the other thing. So because we have certain weaknesses, we will also be steering the game in certain directions and not others. So just analyzing your over-the-board games, like, for you as a more positional player, like a lot of your games are going to go into grindy positional things. Now, of course, occasionally your opponents will just attack you and you'll have no choice but to go into some craziness. But maybe the percentage of the time that's going to happen is not very high. And that might mean that if your main sort of training diet is, let's say, positional games and some simple tactics, my thought would be maybe you're missing out on like sharp middle games where like maybe that there are no clear-cut winning tactics, but it's just a very sharp position. And I don't know, it might be something like you've got the bishop pair, but you're a pawn down, and like you've got to use some sort of initiative with the bishops to do something. So that's why I was thinking I wouldn't want you to have a restricted and overly narrow diet of positions to look at. To some extent, of course, that will be countered by the fact that you're training others and they might get crazy positions all the time. I don't know. But I have a feeling that there's something to be said for sort of forcing ourselves to look at the kind of positions that we don't understand. A bit like the Chess Dojo endgame sensei philosophy, right? So Jesse says to David and Kostya, you guys aren't as good at endgames as you should be. I'm going to force you to do them for like 3 hours a week, and we're going to like discuss them together until you get that type of endgame. And for you, that might be, just force yourself to look at these really crazy middle games with, I don't know, opposite sides castling or whatever. And just, when you get fed up with your general training routine, that's kind of like your, oh, well, you know what? I'm just going to spend an hour doing that today because, I want to, broaden my skill set. Right.
Right. Well, yeah, I think that's good then. I think I can play, analyze, do a bit of pattern recognition work, but somehow find a way to also introduce positions that aren't designed to put my opponents to sleep by move 12.
Exactly, because hopefully that means, well, maybe, and it's true for all of us, by the way, all of us have types of positions that we like and types of positions we don't like. One of the biggest factors, in my opinion, that's going to determine the consistency of your results is how do you cope when you end up in positions you're not comfortable in, that you don't like, right? Because it will happen. And in fact, opponents might sometimes kind of deliberately make it happen, either because they know you or because maybe they can like tell that you're wanting to steer the game in a particular direction. I had a really good example of that in the 45 Lee Chess League. So I think in the league season, I think I lost maybe 2 games in the season, and one of them I remember like it's a little bit similar to what you mentioned about your positional masterpiece. Like I'd really played the opening so well, and it was all looking great, and then suddenly my opponent sacks a bishop in the middle of the board, and it goes from a very, very kind of quiet positional game where I'm much better to complete carnage. And I don't mind carnage, it's not my best thing, but I like it, even if I'm not that good at it. But the thing is, my opponent, I kind of found out later on, is like a only carnage kind of player. So he was going to do something to create carnage no matter what. And once the carnage ensued, I wasn't strong enough. I wasn't good enough at just navigating the sharp position. So, in order to have, ultimately, if we're wanting big rating gains, we're going to need consistency in results. And that means, we might try and steer away from chaos as much as we can, but, every so often, every few games or whatever, it will come. So I think, we all chess improvers to an extent need to kind of prepare for everything, all kinds of position.
lean into the things that you are less comfortable in, as uncomfortable as that is. That makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I mean, and I suppose, it's kind of obvious to say, right? But anyone who is, for example, a FIDE master, like, they can't be that bad at any part of the game, right? They've got to be pretty damn good at end games, pretty damn good at tactics, pretty damn good at attacking. Sometimes they say things like, "Oh, my end games are terrible," but they beat me in an equal end game probably 9 times out of 10, right? So it's all relative. And I think people who are seriously strong players, of course they have some things that they are better at than other things, but being well-rounded is very, very crucial, for sure.
Great advice, Finn, and I really appreciate you helping me out. I think I feel a bit more confident about going into next year with this plan.
I've been starting to think that having training partners who you can meet reasonably regularly is very, very crucial. I think it would be fine for it to be someone of around your strength, who might, for instance, in your particular situation, I suspect, I feel that I could benefit a great deal from learning endgame stuff from you. And I think, you could probably benefit from learning sharp middle game stuff from me. So, maybe we should be meeting up, more often and just trading knowledge, because my rating's a bit higher than yours, but we have different strengths and we have different bits of knowledge that we can share with each other. And, maybe it won't be me, maybe it will be someone else that you know or get to know. But, it seems very likely to me that, some other players at your level would be able to give you the sort of, the skills in the sharp positions and attacking and drama. And you'd be able to give them a lot of help with positional play. So, that's, I would definitely strongly recommend thinking about, how you could maybe fit in work with training partners into the schedule. What I would say about that, just from a sort of organizational point of view, is to try to make it the kind of thing where you don't arrange a fixed time every week, because that's difficult to stick to. What works better, I think, is if you can just text them and be like, "I'm free right now. Are you free right now?" Like that kind of thing.
How many children do you have, Finn?
Well, 0, but I mean, I'm almost, I'm not free that often for like a long session, right? I'm very much like squeezing blitz games in here and there, but I kind of think I do squeeze in blitz games here and there, right? So in principle, I could be squeezing in analysis with a training partner in those 20 minutes.
No, that makes sense. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll take you up on that offer then. Maybe we can grab some time every now and again together to just look at some of each other's games and try and find that diversity of skills amongst my peers as well.
Sounds good.
Great. Thanks, Finn. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about before we think about wrapping up here?
Let me think. I guess maybe I could just say a very quick thing, basically just inviting the listeners to come to the tactics group.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if there are any listeners who want to know more about the tactics group or would like to participate, basically we meet at 1900 UTC on Wednesday evenings. And it's hosted on Zoom. So, you just need to hop into a Zoom meeting. We meet for 1 hour and we spend 5 minutes looking at puzzles on our own in silence. And then we discuss as a group until we reach a unanimous verdict on what the right solution is. Sometimes the discussion can be quite long for the harder puzzles. If you want to reach out to me on Twitter, I'm at O'Donovan, or on Lichess O'Donovan. Everyone is welcome to join in that group. Actually, recently we've started to kind of make the group a little bit more of a sort of a kind of hub for people who want to, train together and do other chess activities together as well. So there's a WhatsApp group now where we sometimes drop that kind of message like, hey, is anyone free for some blitz games? Which has been nice. And also a couple of our members are running a study group on Silman's Reassess Your Chess at the moment. It's a nice little community to come and check out. I would be happy to hear from anyone who would like to join in.
Fantastic. And I'll put links to all of that in the show notes. Thanks so much for coming to talk to me, Finn. It's been great to catch up with you, and it's been really fantastic to have you help for my study plan for 2024.
Great, thanks so much, Scott. No, I really appreciate being invited on, and I really enjoyed the discussion. Thank you.
Hi, it's Yara here. I'm Ono's wife, and I'm the other half of the Ono Zone behind the scenes, which you might know by now at the end of season 1. So thank you for listening all the way to the end. And the Zoom hangout for this episode, as Ono said, will be on the 5th of January in the new year 2024. We wish you all the happiest of holidays. If you enjoyed this episode and you would like to know more about Ono's chess coaching, specialized in adult improvers, you can go check out the website, theonozone.com/coaching, and you can book a free trial lesson there as well if you're interested in trying his coaching. And apart from that, make sure to check out the show notes. As always, we put some good stuff in there. Free study plan for the new year as well, if you want to start 2024 fresh, just like Ono, in your chess study routine. I would definitely recommend that. And in the meantime, I wish you all the chess.